quiet guys talking. I suppose it would be utterly unrealistic for me to bury my head in the sand to avoid seeing or hearing the news. I do think about this method of avoidance, but I'm oftentimes reminded that as a rabbi, I really need to know what's going on in the world. It would be awkward within a pastoral care encounter to have someone start a conversation lamenting the situation in Israel, and my only response is a blank stare, followed by, what's going on in Israel? Knowledge of current events does not mean I can offer a solution. It just means I could be more attentive and empathetic during those conversations. The news cycle is overwhelmingly negative. It comes at us from all directions. People are wantonly killing other people. Peace among nations seems to be slipping further out of reach. And our environment is becoming increasingly unhappy with our presence. This is a lot to take in and hold. It's a lot to process. But we need to process it, lest we lose our minds. It is not merely a coincidence that the Torah portion that most Jewish communities read during Rosh HaShanah is the Binding of Issac, the Akedah. This challenging story contains within it a myriad of themes from which to draw critical, theological, and real-life lessons. Do we need to follow all of God's commandments, even if they conflict with our personal values? How important is good communication between life partners? What is it like to become an empty nester? And how do we receive bad news? This year, I want to bring our focus to the very beginning of the reading. Sometime afterward, God put Abraham to the test, saying to him, "Abraham," he answered, "Here I am. Take your son, your favored one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights that I will point out to you." Now that is bad news. And in the spirit of Cheshbon HaNefesh, an accounting of the soul, which should include processing the prior year, I thought that perhaps we could learn how to process our own bad news based upon how Abraham works through this challenge. But before diving deep into how Abraham's reaction to this command, I want to address the elephant in the room. The Akedah is a troubling story. Any reader would be offended by a God that asks one creature to kill another. It is an anathema to a God of love and a God of creation. According to many translations, it is understood that God asked Abraham to literally kill Isaac and offer him as a sacrifice, a burnt offering. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. The medieval French commentator Rashi steps in to ensure we have no misconception. On the command to offer him there as a burnt offering, Rashi comments, God did not say slaughter him, but merely, as the Hebrew literally says, cause him to go up there. Ba'alehu sham. Commenting on the as a burnt offering, Rashi adds, again, the Hebrew olah says nothing about burnt, merely that it is to be offered up. The Holy One did not want Abraham to slaughter Isaac, merely to bring him up the mountain as an offering. Once he brought him up the mountain, God told him to bring Isaac back down. Olah shares the same root as aliyah, describing one who goes up to the bima or moves up to Israel. It is a direction, not a sacrifice. I hope that this Rashi tangent provides a less terrifying understanding of the Akedah. So let's return to Abraham's response to the bad news he received and the ways he went about processing it. He gets up early in the morning, saddles his donkey, splits the wood for the offering, and grabs his servants and his son Isaac, then sets out to the land of Moriah. This response embodies what is called in modern psychology radical acceptance. He does not waver in the slightest. In his Psychological Today article, John Hatcher, author of Anxiety Hacks for an Uncertain World, states that radical acceptance turns the unbearable into the ordinary. Radically accept that when the big news hits, you cannot mentally process it all at once because it's often too much to handle. It's a mental slip and slide. Sit with what's happening without trying to deny or control the outcome. Acceptance is your only way out and through. Hatcher carefully points out that accepting something is not the same as labeling it as good or even okay. Another best practice laid out by Hatcher is to practice self-compassion. One method is to place one's hand over the heart and take a few breaths, enjoying the gentle warmth. He also recommends offering yourself some supporting words. Abraham does both things. To practice self-compassion, Abraham shares the burden of the load with his son. As it says, Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and put it on his son Isaac. The verse continues, he himself, Abraham, took the firestone and the knife, and the two walked together. It is likely that the words for firestone and knife are metaphors, because the Hebrew does not say firestone, it says esh, fire. How could Abraham walk with fire? Furthermore, the Hebrew word used for knife is also more poetic, based on the root achal, to eat. Ma'achelet, the knife, is only used twice in the Torah, and both times are in this story. I also wonder why in a later verse, Abraham picked up the knife. Wasn't he already holding it? So we might then read this as a verse of self-compassion. Abraham needed to bring a fire-like warmth to his heart and to feel comfort in the face of something eating him up inside. Following this, Isaac questions his father as to the whereabouts of the sacrifice, to which Abraham answers, "It is God who will see to the sheep for the burnt offering." In invoking God, Abraham is offering himself supporting and hopeful words. His faith unburdens him. A third best practice mentioned by Hatcher is to shake your body. He cites research into animals that shake themselves off after getting into a fight, and as a result, do not seem to develop anxiety disorders and PTSD the way humans do. He claims that intentional shaking can reset and soothe our nervous system by using the body's natural response to lower anxiety and release stress. At the moment Abraham is stopped from slaughtering Isaac, the text states, "Then Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a ram." Abraham takes two actions. He lifts his eyes, va'isa, and then he looks, vayar. We might understand lifting up his eyes as the first part of shaking one's body and distinct from the action of looking. A final practice in processing is to seek support. There are support groups for almost every adversity imaginable, and Hatcher aptly points out that these groups are where everyone feels awkward the first time they go and are later glad they did. The point is that none of us must go through this onslaught of bad news alone. Abraham receives a blessing as a reward for not withholding Isaac from God, and immediately after, Abraham then returned to his servants, and they departed together for Beersheba. Abraham proceeds to his group, his servants, and they stay together. He has a place to process all that has happened. He does not travel alone to Beersheba, but with his support group. I must admit that I was and remain a bit skeptical with my own reading of the text. How very rabbinic of me to carefully dissect and reinterpret the words in our Rosh HaShanah reading. Trust me, other rabbis have stretched less challenging text a lot further. I refer you to the Passover Haggadah section on exponential miracles and gematria. Yet this is exactly the reason we continue to read the Torah year after year. It speaks to us in our time of need and in a way that is relevant. We are all processing a great deal of information and emotions, and I have shown how the Akedah, a difficult story to say the least, can be used to help guide us through the work that we all have to do. May this year be a year of health, a year of peace, and a year of some better news. May we all be blessed with a happy and sweet new year. Shana Tova Umetuka.